Ew! Get it away from me! That was the only sound in the room. As I lay on the floor, my stitches burst, bright red blood soaking into the pristine white marble. My niece Madison wasn't scared for me. She was terrified my blood might touch her limited edition shoes. My sister Jessica didn't call an ambulance. She grabbed a heavy table runner and threw it over my bleeding leg like she was hiding a wine stain. "You are such a mood killer," she hissed, checking her livestream angles. "Don't move. You'll ruin the shot." I didn't move. I just reached into my pocket, unlocked my phone, and pressed execute. Before I tell you what happened when the lights went out and the water started falling, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? And what time is it for you right now? I want to see how far the truth travels. 2 hours before I was bleeding on the floor, I was standing at the front gates of the villa, admiring the landscaping I paid for. My name is Ashley, and I'm 30 years old. If you looked at the deed to this property, or the registration for the Lexus parked in the driveway, or the bank account that funded the Champagne Tower, you'd see my name on all of it. I built a successful homestay business from nothing, acquiring properties and turning them into gold. But if you looked at the guest list for my sister's engagement party, I wasn't listed as the owner. I wasn't even listed as a VIP. I was just family. A category that apparently ranked lower than the caterers. I navigated the cobblestone path slowly. My right leg was encased in a heavy brace, the result of a car accident 3 weeks ago that required reconstructive surgery on my knee. Every step sent a jolt of electricity up my thigh, but I gritted my teeth and kept moving. I wanted to be here. I wanted to support Jessica. I wanted, stupidly, to believe that today would be different. Jessica met me at the grand double doors. She looked stunning in a white silk jumpsuit, her hair slicked back, her smile bright until she looked down. "You can't bring those in," she said. Her voice was light, breezy, like she was telling me I had a loose thread on my shirt. I looked at my titanium crutches. "Jessica, I can't walk without them. The doctor said non-weight-bearing for another 2 weeks. It's a white party, Ashley. Those are gray. And industrial. They look." She wrinkled her nose, searching for the right word. "Tragic. I can't stand without them," I repeated, thinking she surely didn't understand the physics of a severed ligament. "You can lean," she countered. "Look, it's not just the aesthetic. It's the energy. Bringing broken things into a celebration of union? It's a massive bad omen. You want me to have a broken marriage because you couldn't leave the medical equipment in the car?" I stared at her. This is a specific kind of violence that toxic people love. They weaponize superstition to make their cruelty sound like spiritual protection. Jessica didn't believe in bad omens. If she believed in karma, she wouldn't be standing in a house she didn't own, wearing diamonds she didn't buy, hosting a party funded by money she stole from my insurance settlement. People like my sister use bad vibes and negative energy as a convenient shield. It allows them to strip you of your dignity and call it self-preservation. It wasn't that she was afraid of bad luck. She was afraid of imperfection. She wanted a prop, not a sister. And props don't need medical accommodations. "I can't walk back to the car," I said, my voice flat. "It's too far." "I'll have the valet take them," she said, snapping her fingers at a teenager in a vest. Before I could protest, the crutches were pulled from my grip. "Just hop over to that alcove by the bar. You can lean against the wall. You'll be out of the way of the cameras there anyway. Please, Ashley. Don't be selfish. It's my day." I stood there, balancing precariously on my good leg, trembling from the effort. I looked at my mother, Linda, who was chatting with a neighbor a few feet away. She saw me. She saw the crutches disappear. She saw me wobble. She took a sip of her wine and turned her back. That was the moment the contract was signed in my head. I didn't argue. I didn't make a scene. I hopped, agonizing inch by inch, to the dark corner she pointed to. I pressed my back against the cold plaster, grit my teeth against the throbbing fire in my knee, and decided to watch. If I was going to be a prop, I was going to be the most expensive prop she ever rented. From my vantage point in the shadows, I had a perfect view of the theater my sister had constructed. The guests were mingling under the vaulted ceilings, their white outfits glowing against the warm ambient lighting. It was a scene of effortless wealth and curated perfection. But as I leaned against the cold plaster, trying to shift my weight off my screaming knee, I didn't see a party. I saw a balance sheet, and the ink was running red. I watched Jessica laugh, throwing her head back as she clutched a glass of vintage champagne. That glass cost $40. The bottle cost $300. The case was charged to a card ending in 4012. My card. She told me it was for emergency incidentals when she offered to pick up my prescriptions last week. Apparently, in Jessica's world, a champagne tower is a medical necessity. My gaze drifted through the open French doors to the circular driveway. There sat the white Lexus SUV, wrapped in a massive satin bow. Jessica had been parading it on Instagram all week, captioning it, "New Beginnings." She forgot to mention the beginning of a 72-month financing agreement signed by me. I had convinced myself it was a safety necessity for my niece, Madison. I told myself family supports family, but standing there, throbbing in the dark while she posed on the hood, the lie tasted like ash. For 10 years, I had been the silent investor in the corporation of Jessica's ego. I paid off our mother's gambling debts so they wouldn't lose the house. I funded Madison's private school tuition so she wouldn't have to mix with the public school kids. I bought this villa as a rental property to secure my future, only to have Jessica claim it as her personal event venue every other weekend. I had spent over $210,000 buying their affection, and the return on investment was zero. But the real knife in my gut wasn't the car or the house. It was the flowers. Thousands of white hydrangeas and orchids cascaded from the ceiling, a breathtaking floral cloud that smelled like money. I knew exactly how much they cost. $25,000. I knew this because I had checked my bank app 10 minutes ago, while I was under general anesthesia for my knee reconstruction surgery. Jessica had used the power of attorney I entrusted to her for medical decisions to access my settlement account. She hadn't paid the hospital. She had paid the florist. She had literally decorated her party with my pain. Every petal in that room was bought with a piece of my shattered cartilage. I watched my mother, Linda, tap a spoon against her glass, calling for a toast. To my beautiful daughter, she beamed, eyes glistening. Who has created this magical life all on her own? The room erupted in applause. Jessica wiped a delicate dry tear from her eye. Something inside me finally snapped. It wasn't a loud crack. It was the quiet, metallic click of a vault door closing. I wasn't their family. I was their venture capitalist, and they had just defaulted on the loan. The throbbing in my knee stopped feeling like pain and started feeling like fuel. I wasn't going to wait for the party to end. I was going to audit the books. Right here. Right now. The music was a throbbing bass line of acoustic covers, tasteful and expensive, just like everything else Jessica had stolen. I shifted my weight, the sweat of pain gathering at my hairline. That's when I saw Madison. My 10-year-old niece was a miniature replica of her mother, dressed in a custom white tulle dress that probably cost more than my first car. She wasn't playing tag or chasing other kids. She was filming a TikTok, phone held high, ring light clipped to the top, backing up rapidly to get the perfect wide-angle shot of the dessert table. She didn't look where she was going. She didn't care who was in her way. She was the main character. Everyone else was just scenery. I tried to brace myself, but with one good leg and a wall behind me, I had nowhere to go. Madison slammed into my injured knee with the force of a cannonball. The sound wasn't a crack. It was a wet, sickening tear. I didn't even have time to scream before my leg gave way, and I collapsed onto the unforgiving marble. The impact sent a shockwave of nausea through my stomach. Then came the heat. A sudden, wet warmth, soaking through the bandages under my jumpsuit. I looked down. The white fabric of my pant leg was turning a deep, vibrant crimson. The stitches had burst. The blood was pooling fast. A violent red ink blot test spreading across the pristine white floor. Ev! Oh my God, Ev! The scream didn't come from me. It came from Madison. She was standing over me, phone still recording, looking at the blood with a face twisted in pure disgust. She wasn't looking at my face. Twisted in agony. She was looking at the hem of her tulle dress. "Mom!" she shrieked, backing away as if I were radioactive. "She's bleeding! It's going to get on my shoes! Make her stop!" There is a specific kind of horror in watching a child react to suffering with annoyance instead of empathy. Children aren't born heartless. They don't naturally look at pain and worry about their wardrobe. They are taught that. Madison had been raised in a house where appearances were the only currency that mattered. She had learned, lesson by lesson, that people are only valuable when they are pretty. And when they break, they are trash. Watching her film my bleeding leg for her followers, I realized the toxicity wasn't just a quirk of Jessica's personality. It was a heritage. It was a family heirloom being passed down in real time. Jessica materialized out of the crowd. She didn't kneel. She didn't check the wound. She looked at the blood, then at the guests who were starting to stare, and her eyes went wide with panic not for her sister, but for her aesthetic. "You have got to be kidding me," she hissed. She grabbed a heavy linen tablecloth from a nearby cocktail table, sending crystal flutes crashing to the ground, and threw it over my leg. She covered me up like a dog that had made a mess on the rug. "Keep it covered," she whispered furiously, leaning down close to my ear. "You are ruining everything. Just drag yourself to the bathroom and stay there until the speeches are done. Do not let anyone see that blood." She straightened up, flashing a bright, fake smile to the room. Just a little spill, everyone. Nothing to worry about. Under the heavy linen, my blood was still flowing, hot and sticky. But the pain in my knee had faded into something else. Cold. Sharp. Absolute. She wanted me to hide? She wanted me to clean up the mess so she could pretend her life was perfect? I wasn't going to the bathroom. I wasn't going to hide. I pushed the tablecloth aside, grit my teeth, and looked toward the back of the room. The audio-visual booth was 20 feet away. It was time to show the guests the real highlight reel. I didn't crawl to the bathroom like a wounded animal. I stood up. The linen tablecloth fell away, revealing the ruin of my leg to the entire room. But I wasn't hiding anymore. I locked eyes with Jessica, who was frantically signaling the waiters to intervene, and I started to move. The path to the audio-visual booth at the back of the room was only 20 feet, but with a knee that felt like it was filled with broken glass, it was a marathon. Every step was a fresh scream of nerves, a hot needle driving into the bone. But the adrenaline was a powerful anesthetic. It turned the pain into a cold, rhythmic thumping that matched the beat of my heart. Step. Drag. Step. Drag. The crowd parted for me. Not out of respect, but out of confusion and revulsion. I was the stain on their perfect white canvas, and they pulled their silk hems back to avoid contamination. The DJ was a college kid in a tuxedo that didn't fit. He looked up, startled, as I limped into the booth, blood trailing behind me on the carpet. "Hey, you can't be back here," he started, reaching for his mixer. "Emergency override," I said, my voice eerily calm. I reached past him and yanked the HDMI cable out of his laptop. The acoustic cover of All of Me died instantly. The room plunged into a confused silence. On the massive 100-inch LED screen behind the stage, the slideshow of Jessica's perfectly curated engagement photos vanished, replaced by the no-signal blue screen. I plugged the cable into my phone. "Ashley, what are you doing?" Jessica's voice rang out, shrill and panicked. She was rushing toward the stage, her heels clicking frantically on the marble. "Cut the power. Someone get her out of there." Too late. My phone synced. The screen flickered once, then resolved into a high-definition image. It wasn't a photo. It was a document. Specifically, it was a PDF titled Venue Rental Agreement. I grabbed the microphone. The feedback squeal made half the guests cover their ears. "Testing," I said. My voice boomed through the speakers, drowning out Jessica's protests. "Sorry to interrupt the slideshow. I thought we should look at some more relevant documentation." I swiped on my phone screen. The projector zoomed in on the bottom of the document. "For those of you admiring this beautiful villa," I said, my eyes scanning the crowd until I found my mother, "you should know that the deed is in my name. Ashley Caldwell. Not Jessica. Not my parents. Me. And this." I swiped again, landing on a signature block. "This is the contract Jessica signed 3 days ago," I said. "A standard commercial rental agreement." I told her it was for insurance. She didn't read it. If she had, she would have seen Clause 14A. I zoomed in on the highlighted text, projected large over the room. "Tenant assumes full financial liability for any damage or safety violations. Property is a commercial venue, not a residence. No tenancy rights." Jessica froze. She understood immediately. I could evict her. "But that's just the venue," I continued. "Let's talk about the decor." I swiped to my bank statement. One line was highlighted in red. $25,000. Dated the day of my surgery. "This money came from my emergency medical fund," I said flatly. "Withdrawn via power of attorney by my sister." Another swipe. An invoice appeared. "Lux Florals. $25,000. Paid." The room murmured. Bradley stared at Jessica, color draining from his face. "You're celebrating with money taken from my recovery," I said. "So welcome to my house. Let's review the bill." "Get out," Jessica screamed. "This is my house." "I can't," I replied calmly. "As the property owner, I'm required to enforce safety compliance." I pulled up Clause 4B. "Strict liability for safety violations. Any indoor open flame voids the contract," I said. "There is no fire," she shouted. I nodded toward the center of the room. Madison stood near the floral arch, twirling a lit sparkler dangerously close to dried pampas grass. "Fire hazard," I said. Jessica turned too late. My finger was already on the smart home panel. "Manual override. Fire suppression system." "You wanted a white party," I said quietly. "Let's see how white it stays." I pressed the button. The sprinklers erupted, not clean water, but thick black sludge from years of stagnant pipes. Guests screamed as white silk turned gray. Flowers collapsed. Champagne shattered. Jessica was soaked head to toe. Her jumpsuit ruined. Her hair plastered with filth. In seconds, the party was destroyed. Per Clause 14C, I announced. The tenant is responsible for all cleanup and water damage. I'll send the invoice. The guests fled. Jessica stood shaking, staring at her signature still glowing on the wall as the math hit her. I unplugged my phone. The fire department and police are en route, I said. You may want to explain the indoor pyrotechnics. I turned to leave. That's when she attacked. Jessica lunged and stomped directly on my surgically repaired knee. Pain exploded. I collapsed, screaming. She kicked me again, screaming for me to fix it, to give the money back, clawing for my phone. My mother watched. She did nothing. Then the doors burst open. Police rushed in. Get off her, now! Jessica was arrested on the spot. Assault. Theft. The evidence was still projected behind her. 1 month later, I sat in my new, accessible apartment. My surgery succeeded. I'll walk again with a limp. Jessica is out on bail, facing felony charges. The villa damages totaled $60,000 legally hers. I cut contact. Sent a cease and desist. Chose peace. They wanted perfection. I gave them the truth. And it was worth it. If you've ever been the one paying for everyone else's fantasy, this is your sign to stop.